Hidden in America's past are flavors that most kitchens have long forgotten. Some were born from ceremony, others from sheer survival. These dishes weren't just meals, they were medicine, memory, and meaning. Today we're uncovering 10 rare and remarkable Native American recipes that will make you see history and dinner in a whole new light. From cliffside hunts to forest foraging, from sacred rituals to everyday resilience, each dish carries the wisdom of a people who knew how to listen to the land. This isn't just food, it's legacy. 1. Smoked bat with berry glaze. In the dusky canyons of the Southwest, where the sun slips behind red rock and the air turns cool, fruit bats once fluttered in sacred silence. Tribes like the Zuni saw them not as pests, but as messengers of the night, swift, silent, and precise. Catching them required patience and respect. Once cleaned and split, the bats were smoked slowly over mesquite wood, their flesh darkening into crisp, aromatic strips. Near the end of the smoking, a glaze made from crushed wild berries and honey was brushed across, the meat a final offering of sweetness to balance the smoke. This dish wasn't everyday fare. It was reserved for hunters, warriors, and elders, those who carried the weight of protection and wisdom. Eating bat was believed to sharpen the senses, to pass on the creature's nocturnal instincts. It was a dish of reverence, a reminder that even the smallest life, when honored properly, could nourish body and spirit. 2. Bear fat and pine bark crumble. In the northern forests, winter could strip the land bare. Snow covered the ground, game grew scarce, and survival meant turning to the trees themselves. Beneath the rough bark of pine trees lay a thin, sweet layer called cambium, the living tissue of the tree. It was scraped carefully, dried and toasted in bear fat, which was rendered slowly over open flame. The result was a smoky, crisp crumble, sometimes folded with dried berries or slivers of smoked fish. But its true power came from what it represented: the endurance of the tree, the strength of the bear, and the ingenuity of the people, who knew how to draw life from the land when it seemed to offer none. This dish was eaten with quiet reverence. It was a gift from the forest. A reminder that survival wasn't just about food, it was about relationship, respect, and resilience. 3. Turkey feet and cactus soup. In the dry, sun-baked Southwest, nothing was wasted. Wild turkeys roamed the brush, and even their feet, tough, sinewy, and full of connective tissue, were prized. Cleaned and skinned, the feet were simmered for hours until the tendons dissolved into a silky, collagen-rich broth. Into this broth went diced cactus pads, nopales with their tart, green bite, and healing properties. The result was a soup that carried the desert. In every sip, the strength of the wild bird, the resilience of the cactus, the wisdom of those who knew how to coax flavor from scarcity. Children chewed the softened cartilage like candy. Elders swore by its power to soothe aching joints and restore energy. It was more than nourishment. It was medicine, memory, and a celebration of the land's quiet generosity. 4. Porcupine and Gut Sausage. In the dense forests of the north, porcupines were more than a nuisance, they were a lifeline. Their meat was rich, their fat abundant, and their intestines, once carefully cleaned, became casings for one of the most prized winter dishes, gut sausage. The filling was a mix of chopped organs, rendered fat, wild herbs, and sometimes dried berries. Stuffed into the cleaned intestines and roasted over fire, the sausage crackled as it cooked, releasing a bold, smoky aroma that filled the cold air. Preparing it was no small feat. One wrong move with the quills, and the cook paid in blood. But the reward was warmth, sustenance, and pride. This was a dish of skill, courage, and deep respect for the animal that gave so much. 5. Pickled duck embryos in clay. Along marshy riverlands, duck eggs were gathered at a delicate stage mid-development, when the embryo had begun to form but was still soft. These eggs were wrapped in a mixture of clay and ash, then buried in cool earth to cure slowly over days. As they aged, the yolks turned creamy, the young bird formed in soft detail, and the flavor deepened into something earthy, tangy, and rich. Sliced thin and served with tart berries or mustard leaves, the dish was both a delicacy and a ritual. It was believed to bestow vitality, especially during times of transition. Birth, coming of age, healing. Eating it was an act of trust in the land's cycles and in the body's ability to renew itself. 6. Stinkbug stone broil. In the high deserts, where food was scarce and creativity essential, even the most pungent creatures found their place at the fire. Stinkbug gathered in dry months were roasted on hot river stones scented with sage. The heat tamed their sharp odor, leaving behind a peppery crunch that was surprisingly satisfying. Warriors might chew a few before battle, not just for the heat in their mouths, but as a symbol of fearlessness. To eat what others would flee from was to declare mastery over discomfort. Over disgust, over danger, it was a dish of defiance. A reminder that strength isn't always found in size sometimes. It's in the willingness to face what others won't. 7. Fish head pudding. In the cold waters of the north, salmon and trout were sacred, and nothing was wasted, especially the head, boiled until the cheeks and eyes melted into rich broth, then thickened with cornmeal or cattail root. The mixture became a dense, savory pudding. To elders, the eyes were more than a meal, they were a blessing, a way to see clearly, both on the trail and in spirit. The pudding was served at gatherings, offered to those in need of guidance or healing. It was a dish of vision, of honoring the whole animal, of seeing nourishment not just in the flesh but in the wisdom it carried. 8. Steamed Lichen dumplings. From the craggy mountain slopes came a soft, black moss, lichen harvested by hand and mixed with acorn meal or dried berries. Shaped into sticky dumplings and steamed over hot stones. They were earthy, chewy, and deeply sustaining. Lichen was a symbol of endurance. It grew where little else could. To eat it was to take in that resilience, to remember that even the barest landscapes offered sustenance for those who knew how to look. These dumplings were often shared during long journeys or in times of scarcity. They were humble, quiet, and powerful, like the mountains themselves. 9. Sun-dried snail jerky. After the morning dew, snails were gathered from forest floors, purged, boiled, and laid out to dry in the sun. Over hours, they shrank into tough, salty curls, chewy, portable, and long-lasting. Hunters carried them on long treks. Families softened them in stews. They were light to carry, rich in protein and full of memory. Slow creatures feeding fast lives, a quiet irony that spoke to the balance of nature. It was a dish of patience, of transformation, of honoring the small and the slow. 10. Cave cricket paste. Deep in limestone caves, long-legged crickets hid in the shadows. Hunters coaxed them out with smoke and silence, then roasted them until their shells popped. Ground into a dark, smoky paste, they became trail rations for the leanest times. The taste was bitter, the nourishment undeniable. It was a food of last resort and of deep wisdom. A reminder that life clings hardest in the dark, and that even the smallest creature can carry strength. This paste was eaten with reverence. It was survival, distilled, a lesson in humility and in hope. Each of these dishes tells more than a story. They speak of resilience, respect, and an unshakable bond with the land. In their flavors lie the ingenuity of survival and the sacred, trust between people and the world that feeds them. These recipes weren't written down, they were remembered, passed hand to hand, heart to heart, and now we remember them again. If you felt a spark of curiosity or nostalgia here, join me as we continue to unearth edible history. Subscribe, share, and help keep these stories and the wisdom they carry alive for generations to come.